Hi guys, it's your faculty Ranganathan SVN Kondala back again with the series of video that we were doing. Now in this session, we're going to continue from where we stopped the previous discussion. In the last video that I have given you, that I did discuss with you about the Indus Valley architecture, Indus Valley architectural patterns, architectural styles. Now, by 1750 BC, Indus Valley civilization was then succeeded by the Vedic civilization, who extended from 1750 BC to 1000 BC. In the early Vedic and 1000 BC to 600 BC. The Vedic civilization remained one of the most important and most prominent. But architecturally, their contributions are less significant given that the Vedic people were actually writers. Their contribution in art and culture, their contribution in literature is substantially big. They had very little emphasis on architectural constructions. In fact, in the modern day, we do not have much of an architectural evidence coming all the way from the Vedic people. The Vedic civilization emphasized essentially in their architectural designs with the same logic of their caste divisions, their casteist calculations, and the class divisions. These are very visible in their constructions. Vedic people had thatched huts, obviously with fences, and constructions were pretty much based on model of cosmos. It was earthly representation of the cosmic systems. Jupiter, the Navagrahas, etc., were sort of designed into this ground plan like this. They used to have this model, and then they used to divide a 9-plan structure and then give a Vastu Purusha Mandal or Vastu Mandal of the ground. Now, they were naturally all houses were, whatever planning was there, it was always on the square grid plans. And architecture for the Vedic people was essentially a metamorphic expression of the universe, of the world, of the globe. Okay. And they gave direct pictographic or direct earthly representation of the Panchamahabhutas, the 5 earthly elements. Temples, religious structures seems to have never been erected. Obviously, given that because one must always understand that the Vedic people were not idol worshippers. So they were not into idol worship, they were not into those sort of things. Mud, wood, thatch, bamboo, cow dung seems to have been the most prominent and commonly used architectural elements in constructions. Architectural elements, okay? No. This is what I meant, basically an earthly representation of the world, earthly representation of the cosmos. Generally, eastern entrance is preferred. Southeast entrance will always lead to a quarrel. Western entrance was known for vitality, lack of creativity. Northern entrance was known for happiness and prosperity. So those sort of things, those sort of designs were created. Now, after Vedic people, India saw growth of civilizations. Now, these were civilizations particularly coming as the Magadha and the Janapadas plus Mauryans. Approximately from 700 BC up until 180 BC, we see Magadha Maurya architecture dominating the profile. Dominating India's architectural schools. And one of the earliest architectural traditions which started in India was rock cut architecture. That is, existing rocks, existing mountains were actually chipped off or carved to create sculptures. and caves. So early sculptures were not actually freestanding sculptures. They were carvings or there were chippings on cave walls. Like rock cut art is more similar to sculptures than architecture. I mean, this is basically I mean by chipping sculpture. So this is not a freestanding sculpture. On the cave wall, a sculpture is designed. And main contributors of the rock cut architecture were the Maurya Magadha people. Maurya Magadha people. Okay. An exotic example of the early Mauryan architecture, it seems, or early Magadha Mauryan tradition, is the city of Patliputra. And details of the city of Patliputra were fantastically given in the book Indica by Megasthenes. Megasthenes gave intriguing details about the city of Patliputra, how the city was, the shape. In fact, he even said about how Patliputra remains a city built entirely with wood. Entirely with wood. It seems Patliputra was in the shape of a parallelogram like this, 9.5 miles by 2 miles in its width. And the entire city of Patliputra was enclosed in timber. It had wood fortifications. Wooden fortifications. Chinese travelers even talk about grand palace of wooden pillars in Patliputra. Large, huge palace of wooden pillars. City, it seems, the Patliputra city was divided into 4 blocks. Rajaprasada was the grand palace, multi-storied palace. In fact, while describing the Rajaprasada, Huansang says that the upper floors of the palace were actually shredded in clouds. They were hidden in clouds. So if somebody had to go to the upper floors, it was very, very high. Gigantically huge construction. Hathi Khana is the artillery center, or you can say elephant stable. Then came the main palace. The main palace was where it was like the inner enclosure. In the grand palace was this. Inner enclosure is the main palace. Okay. And then outside used to be a grand hall. Now, an evidence of this you can see in the movie Bahubali. Sort of artistic expression of this. You know, where the lady, the heroine is actually tied to chains. That's the grand hall. An example. Okay. During Ashoka's period, we also see stone and wood being used as the main material. So Mauryans used stone and wood as the primary materials of constructions. And even today, recent excavations of Patliputra, which is basically Patna, show large wooden beams under the city. Large, huge wooden beams. This is basically an example of the wooden enclosure around the city. Wooden enclosure with lofty gates. Modern architecture, for our study purposes, we divide into 2 types: court art, popular art. Court art is those which are basically state initiative. These are run by the state, controlled by the state, sponsored by the state, maintained by the state. So these are more like standardized. Popular art was done by the individual initiative, so these had more diversity. You can say creativity. Artistic expression was more high in popular art. Court art included pillars, stupas, palaces. Popular art included caves, pottery, sculptures. Among these, pillars, stupas, caves were extensively observed across the Mauryan state, across India. Hugely. I mean, there was just a substantial explosion of architectural practices here. While Mauryan state did support literature, the architecture things were highly sponsored. Now, Mauryan architecture, best example, palaces. Most popular is the Kumrahar Palace. These palaces used to have, like these were palaces almost like pyramidal in shape, with one central base pillar and the entire construction on the sides like a pillar, like a pyramid. Chandragupta Maurya inspired these early palaces from the Achaemenid constructions or Achaemenid principles with the central supporting pillar, and wood was the primary material of construction, the principal material of construction in these periods. Megasthenes described Patliputra as one of the greatest creations of humans of that period. Central pillar, three-storied wooden structure across the sides. Kumrahar Palace. Now, most of the palace is actually in a depleted condition. The palace is itself gone. This is something like the central pillar example. Of Patliputra. Now, the second biggest contribution of the Mauryans were the pillars. Now, Mauryan pillars were actually inspired from Achaemenian pillars. Achaemenid Empire was a contemporary kingdom for the Mauryans located in Syria, Iraq section, on the banks of Tigris Euphrates River in that region. Okay, now Mauryan pillars basically had four parts: motif, which was this. This could be an animal, this could be a symbol, a bird, anything. Below the motif, suppose if this is motif, this is motif. Below motif came abacus. Abacus could be circular or square or rectangle. After that came shaft. This is shaft. Shaft is essentially lotus or bell shape, mainly inspired from Persia. And then, sorry, this is the capital. Lotus or bell shaped capital, and this is the shaft. Now, there is an interesting aspect about these pillars. While Achaemenid pillars were multi-lith pillars, made of multiple stones, Mauryan pillars were a single monolith shaft, single stone shaft. So this entire shaft is made of a single stone. You see this. So this is the motif, the upper part, then abacus, then a bell-shaped capital, well-polished monolithic shaft, made generally with a soft stone. Okay. Best example: Sarnath pillar, Lion capital, Lauria Nandagad pillar, etc. Now, among Mauryan pillars, substantial influence is coming from Persia. Bell-shaped capitals or lotus-shaped capitals, and most of the pillars, almost all the pillars, are made of Chunar sandstone. They are made of Chunar sandstone, and on these pillars an edict is also written. Edict or text is also written. Mauryan pillars are monolithics. Achaemenid pillars are not monolithic. Achaemenid pillars are multilithic pillars. Achaemenians never erected their pillars independently, but Mauryans used to erect their pillars independently. That means Achaemenid pillars were often part of another greater construction. Achaemenid pillars were generally seen as part of another greater construction, another larger construction. Whereas Mauryan pillars were erected independently. They did not need to be part of any greater construction. Most popular example of the Laura Nandgarh pillar, Champaran, Bihar, Sarnath near Varanasi. One particular pillar, the Sarnath pillar, very famous, also happens to be the national emblem of India. It has an abacus and the animal part. The abacus and the animal part, the upper half is actually part of the national emblem of India. Abacus of the Sarnath pillar, the four lion pillar, consists of four animals, consisting of galloping horse on the west, a bull in the east, an elephant in the south, a lion in the north. These four animals seems to be in four different directions. You can say exemplifying or showing evidence of the wheel of existence till eternity. The elephants in the south depict Queen Maya, a white elephant entering the womb of Maya Devi. Okay, Buddha's mother, Mahamaya. The bull in the east depicts a zodiac sign of Taurus, the month in which Buddha was born. Horse represents the horse Kantaka, in which Buddha seems to have used to leave away from his materialist princely life. The Mahabhinishkramana event, symbol of Mahabhinishkramana event. And the lion actually shows the age of enlightenment or the status of enlightenment, the nirvana of Buddha. The national emblem is also imbibed with a small quotation from the Mundaka Upanishad. Satyameva Jayate means truth alone shall triumph. Only truth alone shall triumph. It is written in Devanagari script. Okay, this entire capital is crowned on the Dharma Chakra, the eight-spoked wheel of Buddha. Eight-spoked wheel of Buddha. Now, this is the lion capital. This is our emblem, Sarna, the lion capital of Champara of Bihar, and the bull capital, Rampurva, Bihar, 3rd century BC. Okay. Next, continuing this, the third most important court art sponsored by Mauryans was the stupas. Stupas were essentially funeral mounds. Means these are actually a symbol of Buddha's death, after Buddha's death. Okay, these are funeral cumulus or funeral mounds in which ashes of the dead are buried. So Buddha's ashes, Buddha's utensils, Buddha's goods, Buddha's post-death goods, all of these were actually buried in stupas. Stupas are Buddhist monuments. They are hemispherical in shape with Buddha's relics and ashes inside. They were originally built after the death of Buddha to commemorate the life and death of Buddha. Overall, there are 8 stupas which consists of Buddha's relics, and there is a 9th stupa which consists of the vessels in which Buddha's relics were deposited or were kept. Always remember, the stupa is hemispherical. The core, the inside of the stupa is actually made of unburnt bricks, and the outer surface is made of burnt bricks along with a thick layer of plaster. Now, nobody can actually enter a stupa because stupas do not have doors or do not have windows. They are just like this. Funeral cumulus, 2 layers. So the inner layer, this is made of unburnt brick. The outer layer is made of burnt brick. Okay. Now, Sanchi Stupa in Madhya Pradesh is most popular. Along with that, the Barhut Stupa in Madhya Pradesh, built by Sungas. Piprahwa of UP is obviously the oldest stupa. The parts of a stupa are often very, very important. The topmost part, Yasti, symbol of Madhyama Marga. That is the middle path philosophy of Buddhism. This is cut horizontally by three sort of discs called chhatras, symbolizing the Tripitakas. The three books, Sutta Pitaka, Vinaya Pitaka, Abhidhamma Pitaka of Buddhism. They're all placed on Harmika. Harmika is the abode of the monks, symbol of monks. An entire Harmika is on an Anda, which is the abode of Uparikas or layman followers. There are two pathways. The upper pathway, Pradakshinapada, or called Medhi, Medhi, upper walkway, obviously symbolizing a way for the monks. And then the Vedika, the lower walkway for the common man. And every stupa tends to have 4 gateways called Toranas. So this is basically the funeral cumulus. That's why we generally say that stupas actually symbolize Buddhist philosophy or Buddha's philosophy completely, because all of Buddha's principles can be visible in the construction of a stupa. And as I said, there are 9 stupa locations: Vaishali, Kapilavastu, Allakappa, Ramagrama, Vetapida, Pava, Kusinagara, Pippalivana. And you can see there are 4 Toranas symbolizing that anybody can embrace Buddhism or follow Buddha at any stage of his life in any path they need. Okay. Now this is a typical example of Torana, Anda, Medhi, Vedika. Okay. Now that's a little quick introduction about the Mauryan art, Mauryan court art. Now, we've seen some information about Mauryan stupas, Mauryan pillars, how did the stupa systems start, how did the cave architecture start, and palaces. Okay, this is your faculty, Ranganathan SVN Kondala. Now, do follow me in the subsequent videos, and I'll be continuing, giving you a quick overview about the popular art, also what all cave architecture, sculptures, and pottery which started. And eventually we'll be finishing the architectural features of India. That's it in this session, guys. See you in the next video. Do follow me on Unacademy Plus, www.unacademy.com/Srivanar. And this Sunday, that is the 27th of November, do not miss Combat, an exam, a test, completely free to all at 11 a.m. 50 questions, which will give you 60 minutes, which will give you a clear overview of where you stand with your UPSC CSE prelims. That's it from me today, guys. Thank you. You have a nice day. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.